One island, two worlds. Haiti has descended into chaos and gang rule, while neighbouring Dominican Republic has just experienced a peaceful presidential election. What's so special about both countries that has made them what they have become? A common island, but what about a common history? Please join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
There was a party atmosphere as President Luis Abinader celebrated his re-election in the Dominican Republic. After Sunday's poll, he vowed unity and impartial leadership, and that better times lie ahead. The orderly election was a world away from its violence-stricken neighbour, Haiti, with which it shares the island of Hispaniola. Haiti is currently the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Nearly 60% of Haitians live on less than $3.7 a day, while only 4% of Dominicans are this poor. Haiti has an average life expectancy of 63 years, while in the Dominican Republic it stands at 73. Infant mortality in Haiti is 45 per 1,000 births. It stands at just 27 in its neighbour. Haiti is currently engulfed in the chaos caused by violent gang warfare, triggering a major wave of internal displacement. A transitional council has been appointed. The challenge is enormous, following the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry, while an armed conflict surged in the capital. Close to Port-au-Prince, there's an ethnic Polish community based around Casale, known as Lepologne. They are descendants of surviving members of Napoleon's Polish legionnaires, who were sent to fight on the island, but later joined the slaves during the Haitian Revolution of 1802. Some 400 to 500 of these Poles are believed to have settled in Haiti after the war. President Abinader is keeping a close eye on the crisis hitting Haiti, and he's hopeful the arrival of Kenyan troops to pacify the country will deliver results.
I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Dr. Joanna Gocłowska-Bolek from the University of Warsaw. Welcome to the programme.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. We'll set the scene first on this one island and two very different countries. Can you describe what's happened in the Dominican Republic and then contrast it with the current situation in Haiti on the other side?
So these are two very different countries. And when we look into the Dominican Republic, it's quite a modern and growing economy, strong political stability, and it's just being experiencing re-election of the President Luis Abinader. And it was not surprising, in fact, because during the first term in the office, the president was approved for many his reforms that he tried to conduct during this term. For instance, the economy is doing quite well. So the vaccination process went well. Also, the inflation is kept under control. So at the moment, it's below 4%. It's quite good result, especially in Latin America. And also his public policy program, for instance, Superate is the conditional cash transfer program that has been a success. And the other issue very high on the political agenda was a strict policy towards the Haitian migrants. And this is part of the recent history of the island, and he is going to keep building the concrete wall on the border. The border is not that long. It's about 164 kilometers, and part of this is already separated with the wall because of the very different situation in Haiti, and especially in recent years after the assassination of the President Jovenel Moïse. So the Dominican Republic is a very stable case in Latin America, and it's growing economy, and it's trying to enjoy with a tourist sector that also is growing, and maybe this is part of the success story of the president. And also what's important here, in the recent history, we've been observing more or less the same process again and again in the Dominican Republic. So last 2 decades were a very special case in Latin America, because all 3 former presidents in the Dominican Republic were re-elected again and again. So it shows political stability and a really high rate of approval for these presidents. And this is also true in the case of this old new president that has just gained re-election.
Both countries have had similar experiences, with Haiti being the French colony and the Spanish colony, the Dominican Republic, or what became the Dominican Republic, was a Spanish colony. They both had very violent 19th centuries in terms of their wars of liberation. Is it possible to trace why this separation of culture or history has happened in the Dominican Republic and not in Haiti? Is it a very recent phenomenon, as you seem to suggest about the re-election of the president it helps to stabilize the country? Is it the introduction of a middle class that runs the place? How do you see this diversion?
Of course, there are many factors that are important here, but the most important, in my opinion, is the history and also the case of the French colony that Haiti used to be for years, the richest colony, and France didn't want to allow Haiti to separate and to get the independence.
Yes.
So for many decades, Haiti had to pay big money, really, to France for the independence, and it didn't allow to develop the economy in this case, and also most of these Haitian people were kept under control because the money was needed again and again. And also in the more recent history, maybe it's more or less the same in the case of these 2 countries, because of the authoritarian regimes that both countries experienced. But it's not very unique in Latin America. Many countries in the second part of the 20th century experienced this more or less the same story. But in the case of Haiti, the authoritarian regime was really very strong and didn't allow this economy to gain the stability anyhow. And in the case of the Dominican Republic, we also have the authoritarian regime, but the economy kept growing. And now also the separation is observed in the climate, and also in the natural catastrophes that really invade this part of Haitian island.
Seem to hit Haiti more than the Dominican Republic. Yes.
And this is because it just happens, and because Haiti just destroyed the natural resources of their part of the island. So it's repeating these natural catastrophes, earthquakes and others. And probably recently, because of the political instability, total political instability in the case of Haiti, where they don't have an elected president. And the last elections were experienced in 2016, so yes, quite a long time ago. And in the case of the Dominican Republic, we have this political stability, even unique in Latin America.
What was the post-colonial experience like in the Dominican Republic? You mentioned the fact that the newly independent Haiti had to pay France kind of a ransom to be free, to be independent. Was there a similar situation in the Dominican side? How was that managed?
So in the case of the Dominican Republic, this history went in other direction, because they didn't have to pay. So they just get the independence from Spain, and they tried to establish their institutions, economy, in political stability in the country, and they had many decades of this experience. So they had time to do this, and I would say that today they have quite stable institutions, and they have quite strong constitution. They keep to this, although of course there are many cases when presidents try to moderate this document, for instance, to be able to get the re-election and again.
Yes.
Still, the political stability is a very important factor out there.
Just shifting slightly to the kind of a bit more of a sociological, cultural Polish experience. Mm-hmm. In the Polish culture, history, literature, the experience of the Polish armed forces, or a couple of Polish regiments that were sent by Napoleon, as you say, he reinstated slavery not to lose this jewel in the crown of his empire. And the Poles were sent there as part of this force to quash this slave rebellion. What is the legacy of this particular episode in Haitian culture? Is there a physical remnant of the Polish presence, or is it a literary thing or a historical thing? How do they
So it's a very interesting story of the Haiti and Poland relations that happened just in the Napoleon epoch, where many Polish people were sent over there. Some of them, they just decided to go to the side of Haitian people who wanted to gain the independence. So it's a very similar story to the Polish one.
Yes.
And after this experience, some of these Polish people decided to stay in Haiti. They made friends and made families with these Haitian people. And even today, you can meet some people with blonde hair and also light eyes. And most of them have Polish descent. Yeah. They don't speak Polish now. Usually they live in a small town in this country, but they are very proud of their Polish roots. So when you go to Haiti and you speak about Poland, they just have in mind this very nice element of our relations.
A final question to bringing things back to the future. I mean, this Polish dimension is fascinating historically, but if we can bring it up to the today. The president-elect is continuing to build this wall. How do you see the development of the two countries? Are they just going to be two separate, anarchy on the western side, development on the eastern side?
Two very different countries, different societies, and I would say that maybe many Dominican people just are afraid of the Haitian migrants who for many years there have been just arriving to the country, and maybe they observe this as a difficult issue to deal with. So I believe that this is one of the main element of this political agenda of the new president, Abinader, who is going to continue to build the wall. And last year, for instance, in this very unstable situation, Haiti, and all this economic catastrophe, and all these gangs ruling over there, the Dominican Republic continued to deport as many as 250,000 migrants, Haitian migrants, back to this country, although this country was criticized internationally for this decision.
And what's the hope for this Kenyan peacekeeping force arriving?
So maybe very soon, it's going to happen finally that these international forces, security forces, are going to help Haitian police to gain the stability, and Kenyan from Kenya there will be about 1,000 people who are going to help. And although the recent history of this international security forces, especially from the UN, starting from 2004 and lasting for years, it's not history of success, and the Haitian people are afraid of this again, because there were some cases of sexual abuses and for a cholera outbreak that's very much related to this kind. And I believe that now it's not going to happen. So probably these UN forces, and especially the Kenyan people that's going to be in charge of this international team, they will try to be over there just in the place and help the Haitian people to gain the stability, and not try to do anything in the name of them. And maybe this is the necessity of the recent history, because without this, I cannot imagine that Haiti is going to break with the gangs separately.
Dr. Joanna Gocłowska-Bolek, thank you very much for coming onto our programme. Great to have you.
Thanks a lot.
So join us next time for How We Got Here.